Hey guys, are you ready to transform your mind so you can transform your life? Coach Myrna brings you one-on-one coaching and expert guests weekly to help you to grow. Because happiness is the progressive realization of a worthy goal.
Looking for personal growth? Let's do it. If your New Year's resolution is to start a business or grow your current business, Shopify is how you can make it happen. Let me tell you how. Shopify makes it simple to create your brand, open for business, and get your first sale. Go to shopify.com/transform to start selling with Shopify today. Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Myrna Young. And sitting in the guest chair today is fertility coach Rosanne Austin. And Roseanne and I are going to talk on the topic, Dispelling the Common Fertility Myths. Welcome, Roseanne.
Well, thank you very much, Myrna. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy to have this conversation too. You know, I am very well versed in the fertility or infertility topic. So I love having conversations on things that I know. So yeah, so I am like all excited in order to share because it's become a huge problem. When I was younger, people got pregnant, they didn't want to get pregnant, and now everybody wants to get pregnant and can't get pregnant. So it's a big topic, and I'm glad to be sharing your expertise with the listening audience. So, all right, guys. So with that little intro, let me give you a short intro to Roseanne. As I mentioned a minute ago, 1 in 5 couples grapple with infertility. Rosanne Austin is a former California sexual assault prosecutor turned world-renowned fertility coach and author of the book, The Feminine Fertility Cure. Roseanne takes the hard-won lessons from her own 7-year fertility journey and has helped thousands of women around the world get and stay pregnant when it looked like the cards were stacked against them. Known as the fertility fairy godmother, Roseanne has guided thousands of women, ranges from ages 28 to 53, towards the dream of motherhood. Yes, it's a dream. And, I have a lot of friends that have infertility issues. And because of that, I watched this documentary on Netflix. And my eyes were open to what happens in a woman's fertility journey. And then, I've read several books, 3 books, in fact, Paris Hilton, Gabrielle Union, Rebel Wilson, 3 people that have named or gone through their infertility journey. So let's start with yours. Can you tell us, what was your 7-year fertility journey like, and how did it end for you? I'm assuming that you're a mother now. How did it work?
Yeah, we'll get there because 7 years is a long time, girl. So yeah, I was a prosecutor at the time. So I was the lead trial attorney in a specialized sexual assault prosecution unit in California. And when my husband and I decided that it was time for us to start our family, I figured it would be just like anything else I had worked on, that if I put my mind to it, this is a non-issue. I'll be pregnant by May. I have a trial scheduled for June. Like, I thought it was going to be that linear.
Yeah.
But I had also heard, because at that time I was 36, 37, and I had heard that as we get closer to 40, it gets harder. I did not have any information upon which to actually base that. That was just the understanding that I had. And when we started trying, and it didn't happen immediately, I started to freak out. And I was like, well, maybe it takes a little bit. I did a little bit of initial research, and they said, okay, start trying. But if you're closer to 40, 6 months of trying, go to see a doctor. And that, Myrna, is where things went off the rails really quickly, because the minute I walked through the door, I heard scary statistics. I heard that my chance of getting pregnant was like single digit, like all kinds of really terrifying things. And I went to law school, okay? I didn't have any education whatsoever about medicine, what to expect, that I could advocate for myself. I figured if they wear white coats, they know more than me.
Yeah, yeah.
So I didn't really challenge any of that. I just sort of went straight to, I'm in a hopeless situation. And so I immediately went to a fertility clinic, and it got worse from there. Because at 37, they were telling me I needed donor eggs.
What?
Yeah, at 37. And so at that point, I was like, I was, like, okay, well, is there something sort of before that? Could we try IVF? Like, and so really ill-informed, I went from trying naturally to IVF. Like, boom, there was nothing in the middle. Nobody was talking to me about nutrition. Nobody was talking to me about my stress. Nobody was talking to me about lifestyle. It was, hurry up because the train has left the station. So my husband and I dove straight into IVF, not knowing at all what to expect. And it was a horrifying experience. And needless to say, that first round of IVF did not turn out the way that we wanted it to. And I remember sitting catatonic practically in the doctor's office when we were being told our only chance was going to be with donor eggs. And I remember there was a small voice inside of me. I honestly believe it was the Holy Spirit, voice of God, whatever you want to call it, said, no, this is not your story. But where I was at in my life at that time, I didn't trust it. I just figured medicine knew better than me. What was I going to do with this? The doctors were telling me no, but there was a part of me that said, let me do some investigation beyond this. I'm not ready to give up on my body. And look, I've got nothing against donor eggs. I think it's a beautiful gift that one woman can give to another. So no judgment on it. But for me, it did not feel correct. It did not feel lined up. So I started to do some investigation.
Donor eggs it's from what I know, if someone's giving you your eggs, it's not really your biology, correct?
It is not your DNA, but you share a blood supply with that baby for 40 weeks. So epigenetics at some level plays a role. I personally know clients who have used donor eggs, and that child, strangely, has a lot of their characteristics.
Okay.
Shockingly. So yes, there's not necessarily a genetic match, but if you look at epigenetics and how magic happens in the womb, like this incredible just synergy happens in the womb. While the child may not be genetically yours, there is a biological connection, which is fascinating and quite magical. But I started to do some research, like what are some other things? And that's where I fell upon things like mindset, nutrition, lifestyle. I was working crazy 60 to 80-hour weeks in my job as a trial attorney. And I had not connected the dots, Myrna. Like I was not seeing that the mind and body work together and stress has an impact. And we know now there's data from 2014 going back showing the impact of high stress, high cortisol on time to conception. And, if a woman ever conceives. So we know that high stress has an impact. The idea that the mind and body are not working together or that your stress has no impact is not proven by the data. Right. And so when I started to take a look at this and started to make changes in my own life, started to change the way that I thought, because here's another thing. I was allowing my struggle with fertility to dictate how I felt about myself. I felt like a failure. I mean, it didn't matter how many cases I tried. It didn't matter how many letters came after my name. The fact that I was struggling with this made me feel worthless. And I thought I was denying my husband the chance to be a father. Like I went down a dark road.
Yes. Listen,
So when
it's a predominant thing for women to want to be mothers. There's a few women that don't want to be mothers, but I think it's a biological hardwired that most women want to be mothers. And especially when you know you can't, you want it even more. Right.
I think that there's truth to that. And I think it's part of our feminine nature to want to nurture, to care for, a baby of our own. Whatever choices women want to make, that's up to them. But I think that there is I think you're right, that there's an inherent desire in us to have that fulfilled in one way or another.
Right.
But when I started making these changes and I started to change the way that I was thinking, I did something incredible. So there were tons of ups and downs on this 7 years, but I got pregnant for the first time just weeks after taking control of my mindset, really conditioning that within me, challenging the negative thoughts. It was like, boom, I couldn't believe it. Now, I didn't carry that baby to term. I had a miscarriage. But what I realized for the first time in my life is I could choose what I thought. I could choose what I believed. And that sounds crazy for such an educated person, but I hadn't made that connection. So I said, you know what? This baby's coming. I'm going to work on me. I'm not going to allow them to tell me what is or is not possible for me. So then I started teaching other women what I had learned because I said, look, my baby's not here yet, but I know this can help people. So I started to teach women and they were getting pregnant left and right. Like every one of my clients was succeeding. And just on the eve of me turning 43, I found out I was pregnant naturally. And this is after 7 years of treatment and failure, Myrna. I was more fertile in my 40s than I was in my 30s because of what I learned. And I ended up having my son naturally before I turned 44, like right on the eve of turning 44. And it was crazy.
Oh, that's a beautiful story. And when I have some circle backs. So when they were telling you to have donor eggs, was there something wrong with your eggs? You weren't producing eggs? The quality of them weren't good? What was the reason?
No, there was nothing other than my age. It was like they wanted me to hurry up and get a solution by having a donor egg instead of
right.
instead of trying to find the root cause of what was going on.
Yeah.
And that was extremely frustrating. And I just remember, I'm very grateful for the presence of mind to just say, hold on. Like by changing the way that I thought and viewed myself and viewed my fertility future, I was able to turn it around. And that's what I help women do today.
Right. Well, that's really an excellent story. And as you were talking, I remember, I only know one evidence of this, but I remember Bush, right? They had adopted and then she got pregnant. And basically what that says is when you take the stress away from I can't get pregnant and you just leave it alone, then you do get pregnant naturally. Because I have heard a lot of stories, I can't put another name to it, but I've heard a lot of stories with, actually, yes, this documentary that I was listening to on Netflix, these women were going through all kinds of IVF. There are some babies that you can get and implant the babies. You can, there's donor eggs, so many different things that they can do. And they went through all that. And after they went through all that, then they got pregnant naturally.
Yeah, I mean, that's the power of
yes.
Yeah, well, that's the power of mindset. So instead of having to go and some families love to adopt, that's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. But it's like, let's learn that skill short of having to adopt a child. Like if it's really on your heart to have the pregnancy experience, get and stay pregnant, let's create that without you having to go out to and adopt a child if that's not what's on your heart, right?
Yes.
And it's about helping women navigate this journey so that they can get and stay pregnant and give themselves the best possible chance. Because if this was just a biological thing, Myrna, if this was just about medicine, nobody would suffer because we would just go have IVF, take your egg, take your partner's sperm, put them together, and we'd never talk about it again. But we know it's not that simple.
No, doesn't work, right?
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
And that's really what the core of this work is about.
Yes, it doesn't, right?
As a life coach, I teach my clients to always set an intention for the new year, either around personal growth or business goals. So, as we welcome 2025, the best time to start your new business is right now. If your New Year's resolution is to start a business or grow your current business, Shopify is how you can make it happen. Let me tell you how. Shopify makes it simple to create your brand, open for business, and get your first sale. Get your store up and running easily with thousands of customizable templates, no coding or design skills required. All you need to do is drag and drop. Their powerful social media tools let you connect all your channels and create shareable posts to help you sell everywhere people scroll. Shopify makes it easy to manage your growing business. They help with the details like shipping, taxes, and payments from one single dashboard, allowing you to focus on the important stuff like growing your business. Established in 2025, doesn't that have a nice ring to it? Sign up for $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/transform, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/transform to start selling with Shopify today.
So that was eye-opening for me as well, because like I said, I have personal friends and I have read books where the IVF journey is long, 10 IVF treatments, but sooner or later something works, which is basically what is the beautiful thing about it. Again, as a mindset coach, that's what I call myself. I know that yes, what you just said, change the way you look at a thing, and the thing you look at will change. You said that. So yeah, once you change your mindset, once you are able to, maybe speak to your body, then a lot of times it changes. So if I was to summarize your story, it will be like once you started, de-stressing, once you started eating properly, once you started taking care of your body holistically, then your eggs, well, I mean, you can't get new eggs, but yeah, let's talk about that. I know that we're born with a finite amount of eggs. So what do you think happened that made you conceive naturally when you weren't doing it before? Before me spinning my little tales, what do you think happened there? Because hang on, I was about to say that you got better quality eggs, but I don't think that that's what happened, right?
Oh, I absolutely think that's what happened. I think what ended up happening is I got a massive dose of what I call vitamin J, joy, and I started living differently. I mean, there is a dear friend of mine is a reproductive endocrinologist, and he was talking about how even at age 60, we still have 1,000 good eggs
Really?
in us as women. So when I connected to who I really am, my vision, what I wanted for myself, I started to feel joy again. I stopped allowing what other people thought of me to control what I thought of me. It naturally opened me up and allowed me to be more receptive to the miraculous. And I know, I was like, look, I'm trained as a trial attorney. I wouldn't have spoken this way 15 years ago, Myrna. But having lived this, I can speak this way with authority because I watch this happen in women's lives. I mean, the women that I coach, physicians, lawyers, teachers, nurses, engineers, artists, women scientists from all over the world. And when you see women going from a single digit chance of getting and staying pregnant to holding a baby, you know there's something to this. And so it's really, and that's what we see in my practice on the regular. This is not abnormal. And so it wasn't, I think it was really a constellation of things that happened. I became more open and receptive to good in my life. I dealt with my underlying sense of inferiority, insecurity, not enoughness, I'm not lovable. And I connected with my body in a different way that I could call one of those good eggs. Come on, toss mama a gem here. I'm ready for a diamond crusted, very fertile egg. Give it to me, right?
Okay.
And it was also a faith journey. That was a big deal for me. And it was coming home in a sense to who I really am, and shedding some of the stories, the limitations, and many other negative things that were controlling my life. And it's such a blessing, Myrna, because and I say this with all of my heart. If my fertility journey literally saved my life. It saved my quality of life, because the woman I had to become in order to bring this boy in, he's like right here over my shoulder.
Yeah, I see him there, right?
I had to be the woman that was worthy of him.
Yeah.
And I am so glad he did not come when I first called him, because I was not ready. And this journey allowed me to reclaim my life and become the woman that I hoped I could be for him. Now there's, nobody's perfect. There's still work to be done.
I love it.
But
I love it.
But it opened me up.
Yes. I hear what you're saying. Holistic, not the stress doing all the time, yeah, you started to be, and embracing your femininity, embracing womanhood. And yeah, listen, there is a big mind-body connection, and I know that. So I hear basically what you're saying, but it's also an oxymoron, because again, like I said, I'm well versed in this topic, and I thought maybe a couple years ago that you have eggs until you're menopausal, which is 50, somewhere around there, 45, 50, 55. People go in different ranges, but now people are saying at 35 you're almost washed up, like what they told you. You know what I mean? And the very last book I read on this was Rebel Wilson. She went into the fertility doctor to freeze her eggs, and the guy is telling her, I think she was like 30, she wasn't 40 yet, somewhere between 37 and 39. And he's telling her that, hey, most of you've got a very small chance of having a baby. And she did go through all that. She did the IVF journey and all that stuff, and she ended up having a beautiful baby girl. But the AIDS situation was the problem. But I mean, I still don't understand how we can influence those eggs, because they came with you when you were born.
So here's the thing. There isn't, based on what I understand, is there's actually no test for egg quality, right? The best they can do is check fertilization rates. It's very easy to blame women. This is part of the misogynistic system that we often find ourselves in. And the common refrain is, oh, it must be your eggs because you're old. Well,
Wait.
Here's the problem. Nobody's really tracking how many women are getting pregnant naturally, because nobody's making any money off of that, right? So you go look in sub-Saharan Africa, you are looking at women who are still having babies well into an age that's not being tracked. I mean, on my podcast, in a couple weeks, we're featuring a woman who was pregnant naturally at 47, Myrna. Like, the idea that this is such a incredibly rare, impossible thing. Like, look at me, look at my clients. We're all living proof of what's possible. So I'm not saying that we necessarily, and look, we don't know what the mechanism is necessarily. Can our body repair itself? Yeah, we see it all the time. Like,
Okay.
what's to say that we couldn't influence if we're not changing the quality of our eggs? What's to say that we couldn't influence which one is released?
Okay.
How do we even know? Like,
got you.
I don't think we even know how which one is chosen necessarily.
Right.
But like,
Yes.
what
Yes.
if we're open and we're receptive and we are in love with the vision that we have for our lives and we say, give me a good one? Because it only takes one, Myrna. It only takes one.
Yeah, it takes one. Right. Okay. Well, that was a good answer because I'm trying to put it together because you're right. They tell you your eggs, the quality, you don't have many, you've got to right. And you're right. It starts now at 35. But what you said about the 47-year-old, I was under the impression that you've got eggs up until you become menopausal and you can get pregnant until you're menopausal, but it's a very small percent of women, at least in North America, maybe in Africa and all those places that doesn't have all this chemicals in their food and they're living naturally off the earth, then maybe they're still getting pregnant in their 50s. But North America, we have gone down this dark path where you get to 35 and you know what I mean? They're telling you you're old, which is ridiculous because you've got another 15 years before you're menopausal. But okay,
Yeah,
so
exactly. Well, and they use the term geriatric if you're over 35. I mean, which is insane.
it's cruel.
Yeah, I'm like 35, you're like an infant practically, like, you're just getting your act together at 35, like it's
Yes.
yeah.
Hey, but that's good. It's all right. So that was good opening. Now, we're talking today about dispelling some of the common fertility myths. So, let's talk about that now. What are some myths that we're carrying around? Probably one that we just talked about, when you're 45, you're washed up. I mean, 35, you're washed up. But what are some of the other myths that people think?
Yeah. Well, so number one, just to kind of cap off that age conversation, is age is but one factor. It's just one factor. You can have a 35-year-old who smokes, eats processed food, and is shooting heroin. Okay, their scenario is very different than somebody who's in their 40s, healthy, exercising. Age is but one factor. The other two that I would like to dispel is number two would be statistics. Women on this journey are absolutely bombarded. You have an X chance of getting pregnant, but they are wrong as often as they are right. And more often than not, those studies are old. They didn't include you. They didn't include your genetics. They didn't include your mother's history. They didn't include any of those things. So statistics are yet just one additional piece of data. I like to think of fertility as a mosaic, Myrna. So age is one piece, your statistics are another piece, but I like to encourage women to be outliers. If this desire is on your heart to be a mom, insist upon becoming an outlier. So don't allow yourself to be bullied by statistics. You want to surround yourself with what I call a bump squad. Experts that you surround yourself with that are going to help you become an outlier, right? You think of, well, you're a coach, you understand this. When you think of elite athletes like Venus, Serena, these women chose to be outliers. They were not going to be a statistic. So what did they do? They hired the best of the best. They have natural talent, but they hire people to help them get to Wimbledon or Roland Garros. Like this is something that matters so much to them that they're going to do the work to get there. So you are not a statistic, woman. That's what I want women to hear in, dispelling the myth of a statistic. The other myth that I wanted to dispel is the idea that stress has nothing to do with this, which ties us back to what we were talking about earlier. I remember going to a top 10 teaching hospital, Myrna, and describing to them, I was self-aware enough to say, I'm working 60 to 80 hours. I'm not eating very well. I'm very thin. Do you think it could have something to do with it? And I remember my doctor, who was a professor, said, oh, no, stress has nothing to do with it. And this is data that is readily available on PubMed for women to go and check out right now. We know that stress has an impact, and you are paying a price for a life out of balance with your health. So you have to get that under control. And I want to say something really important here, that if women listen to nothing else but this, I hope they will take this away. Mindset is healthcare. Mindset is primary. This is not a woo-woo concept, nice to have, maybe someday. Your mindset is determining your quality of life. So if you want better quality fertility, if you want to enhance your chances of getting and staying pregnant, mindset has to be a priority. It's half the battle. In fact, I had a reproductive endocrinologist on my podcast that flat out said it. It's half the battle. And if women are not taking care of themselves in that way, you're going to make the success that you desire so much more difficult. So those are the three: age, statistics, and stress.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm heavily into mindset. And I do believe that what you said earlier, that you can influence your body, you can heal your body, whatever the reason that your body is not giving you good eggs, or the eggs are not, I don't know, not being penetratable by the sperm, or whatever is happening, we do have the ability to influence that through meditation, through, inner body consciousness, through the mindset. You're correct by saying, I will be a mother and failure is not an option. Whatever mindset you do, but yes. And sleeping better, and getting rid of cortisol, the stress hormone, and having, you mentioned joy, all those different things. Yes, I mean, I do that, and I'm not trying to get pregnant.
Are you sure, Myrna? Just kidding.
Do that for longevity, you know what I mean? My, health and my longevity. But yes, it's very important, and mindset definitely is very important. But you know something? It's one of those lines that it's incredibly difficult to walk on. Like you just said, you thought, oh, I will get pregnant, no problem. Once I stop taking, you didn't say it, but I'm assuming once I stop taking the birth control pills, and once I start saying, I'm going to, maybe look at my ovulation or whatever it is, it's going to happen. And then when it doesn't happen, you start to get worried. And then the doctor is telling you you're, geriatric or too old, or your chances are slim or whatever. And then you've got your, natural desire. Then you married, and you don't want to be a disappointment to your husband. And then every month that you look at that little thing, that says whether you're pregnant or not, every time it doesn't strike blue, I'm borrowing from the Kill Bill movie. Whenever that doesn't strike blue or whatever, then you get more and more down into the rabbit hole. You get more and more stressed. So, what advice do you have for someone that to not think about that? Because you are going to think about it.
Yeah. So number one, I would encourage women. This is probably one of the biggest challenges women will face in their lives. Our professions, it's fairly logical and linear. You go to school for X number of years, you complete certain number of classes, you will leave with a degree.
Yes.
Life is not quite the same. We're talking about the miracle of life.
Yeah.
So it is a non-linear, by its nature, journey. So first of all, women need to make a conscious decision to be the authority on their journey. We are so ready, Myrna, to hand our authority over to people that don't really know us. And I'm not anti-physician. I coach tons of physicians, okay? But this is a question of authority. Who is the authority in my life? Me. I have the final say over what happens in my life. And I really encourage women to become aware of this because most of us are not. Most of us are not awake to the fact that we've handed our authority over to somebody else until something tragic or crazy happens in our lives. Then we have an invitation to reclaim that authority. So that's the first thing I really encourage women to do is reclaim your authority. Just because you didn't go to medical school doesn't mean you don't know what's correct for you. Okay?
Right.
You have the final say. Everybody else is coming into your life to support you. And if they don't support what you're going for, find somebody else. Find somebody else, Myrna, because on a planet of almost 8 billion people, women have to remember that a woman on some other side of the planet, similarly situated, overcame her own fertility struggle. And if she did it, so can they. Okay?
Yes.
The other thing is, in addition to reclaiming your authority, is you have to take control of what you make things mean. So let's take your example from earlier. Every month you see a negative pregnancy test. Well, if you make that negative pregnancy test mean you will never have a baby, what kind of an emotional response do you think you're going to have, right?
Yeah.
So you have to decide what that thing means. A negative pregnancy test is simply a negative pregnancy test. I had 84, Myrna, before I got pregnant with my son. Okay, 7 years, 84 tests. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
none of those 84.
That's amazing. I would have given up at 20.
I mean, none of those 84 were going to, had anything to do with whether or not this boy showed up.
Right.
They were simply experiences. So take control of what you make things mean. The third thing is you have to stay grounded in what is true. What is your vision for your life? Because the minute you let emotions take over and distract you from what you know to be true, I would hazard that any woman who is living this journey, if it is truly on your heart to be a mom, you will find a way. And you know that that voice is telling you the truth, right? Fear feels decidedly different as it's whispering in our ear. It's not our highest truth. It's a lie. And so when you feel this to your core, and I hear women all the time from all over the world say, there's something in me that says I'm having this baby. Well, you have to trust that, not the emotion that comes in to try to distract you, because emotions are simply us replaying something from the past, right? It's a past meaning we apply. So really take conscious control over that is what I really encourage women to do. You're not your emotions. Like, you are indeed having them. That's true. And to some degree, they're valid, but they have to move you forward. This is where we get to be the thinking, sentient beings that we are. We have the power of choice. Am I going to choose to believe this, or do I choose to believe something else? And I think this is really an invitation, Myrna, for women to come back to their own authority and say, I get to choose to believe that I can be successful. Because I can tell you, after 10 plus years of doing this work and thousands of women touched by this work, that the ones who do these things, take authority, take control of what they make things mean, and show some discipline with their emotions, they get to the end of the journey with not only a smile on their face, but a baby on their hip.
Yeah. Well, that's an amazing thing about intention. The power of intention is pretty big.
Yes.
And all the stories that I told you I've heard, read, experienced, there's a baby at the other end. That's why I start off by saying to you, how did it end for you? Because I know that you have a baby.
Yeah, he's 7 now. I wish he was still a baby, but he's like a 7-year-old little monkey running around the place. But like,
You talk about fate. the good news. Jesus has the good news, and the good news about the fragility journey is if you stick to it, you're going to have a baby. It might not come the way you want it. For instance, one of the person that was in charge of this Netflix documentary, her goal was to carry the baby, right? She didn't want a surrogate. She didn't want a whatever. She wanted to carry. That was her goal. And she worked with so many different things. When the IVF didn't work, then she got her sister to give her eggs. That didn't work. Then she had a baby implanted. That didn't work. So she went through all the different processes because she wanted to carry. And that was the power of intention. And in the end, one of those things worked. I mean, I think she went through like 4 different types of stuff, but it worked because that is the power of intention. So yes, most of the women on this infertility journey end up having a baby. Some of them say, well, you know what? I'm going to adopt because I want to be a mother. It's not working for me. You know what I mean? Which is why I asked you about the donor eggs, because some women want to have a biological child or whatever. And then after that's went out the window, then they said, you know what? I can love a baby. I just want to have a baby. But yes, there's usually a baby at the end of the journey. There is usually something good comes out of it because that is your intention. So, I mean, I know that you teach about the process. So let's talk about the process now. How do you stay motivated during the process? And if one thing doesn't work, do you advise women to try something else, or do you coach them to go holistically and let it happen naturally?
So I don't have a horse in this race as to how a woman calls in her baby. I have seen, in the years that I've been doing this work, I've seen many, many different combinations of things. But what I encourage women to do first is get really clear. What is it that they want, right? Get crystal clear on the vision. What do you want? Because it simplifies this whole process. It didn't say it made it easier, Myrna, but it simplifies this process once you are clear about what it is, bottom line, that you want. Because you're making thousands of decisions a week on this journey. And the more you can stay focused, the more you stay out of shiny object syndrome and getting pulled in 50 different directions, the more you can stay grounded in your vision, you can decide what things work for you, what things don't, what lines up with my values. You can make decision making simple instead of chaotic. And that's also why I brought up earlier this discipline over your emotions so that you're staying grounded in truth instead of running around all over the place and allowing a single incident to destroy your belief in yourself. It's like, that's not quite true. If there is a will, there is a way, just as you were saying earlier. So it's really about getting women to get grounded in the vision and then make decisions, forward-facing decisions from that. And it's always a simple question. Is this thing that I'm going to be presented with, whether it's a treatment, whether it's a new diet, whether it's mindset coaching, all this stuff, can this thing move me forward? If the answer is yes, give it a shot. What do you have to lose? We have a relatively finite period of time to have this child. This is not the time to be cutting coupons. This is not the time to be, putting this off. This is one of the things that even women who have gotten pregnant in their 50s in my practice, even those women realize that they want to have vitality, they want to have energy for their children. So it's like the time is now, not 10 years from now. So it's really allowing yourself to get excited. That's the other piece of this. Remember what you're doing, ladies.
Yeah.
You're in the process of having a baby. You're not getting a tooth pulled, right? So it may feel like that at times,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's the motivation is so deeply connected to what you want and leading by desire that allowing yourself to lead by desire is one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself on this journey.
Yeah. 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 I love that. I love that. Right. Yes.
And it's deeply feminine, Myrna. It's feminine to live by desire.
Yeah. Yeah. I would add to that, be willing to change I mean, if the intention is to have a baby, right, and be a mother, right, like, you might want to go through it naturally, and then either the doctor tells you it's not going to happen naturally, and then you say you're going to do IVF, and IVF doesn't work, and then maybe you're considering adoption, or you're considering some of the other ways, or surrogacy, or whatever. But I would say be open to possibilities. That's all. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's power in the pivot. Your ability to pivot your direction
That's a good one.
and say, okay, I've been trying naturally for X number of months, years, whatever the case may be. Again, making a forward facing decision and say, hey, you know what? Let me try this. Okay. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to get to the end of my life and be 80 years old on my front porch looking out, wondering what if I had actually stuck with this? What would my life be? Right? There's nothing more expensive than regret, Myrna. So if people just love themselves and love the vision, create a vision so powerful in your mind that it evokes emotion. Like, if you're not crying over your vision, it's not big enough.
Right, right.
So it's like, get this going in you, get it fired up, because that's going to give you the courage.
Mm-hmm.
That's something we haven't talked about yet, is really this courage to keep moving forward for something that you really care about. And that's what's gonna get you there.
Pivot. If you want to hold this baby in your hand, you do it by whatever means possible.
Yes. Yes.
Whatever means possible. Right. Yes. You're right. Because if you don't, then you are gonna have some regret. If you wanted it and you didn't go after it, which is why a lot of women now are freezing their eggs, because they don't want to get to 50 or something, and then the doctor says you got no eggs, right? So they're freezing it, and then they can bring it out. So this is a great conversation. Now, tell us about your book, The Feminine Fertility Cure. Why did you write it, and what do you want the readers to walk away with after reading?
Yeah, this book, Myrna, this book has been on my heart for about 10 years, but I wasn't ready to write it until the past year.
Oh.
And really what this is an invitation, a love letter to women to come back to their femininity. And the reason why this was so important is there was something I was observing in the women that I was serving all over the world. It transcended their culture, it transcended their nationality, age, profession. A lot of women were stuck in what I call man mode. It's this very masculine measure of what success is, right? We were told since the women's movement in the 1960s that ultimately to get ahead, you have to basically become more masculine, right? You've got to live from the neck up, not the neck down. And to get ahead, you couldn't have emotion. You have to act more like a man, dress more like a man. And I think that at least American women have really paid a price over the past couple generations now, is that we've become so disconnected from our femininity that we don't even fully understand what it is. We think it's just pink and sparkly things. And when in reality, it's our creativity, it's our nurturing, it's our intuition, our spirituality, it's our curiosity. It's all of these things that make us so unique as women. And women are exhausted today. They're overachieving. They are just and a lot of women struggle in relationships too because they don't know how to receive.
Right.
And I tell women all the time, conceiving is all about receiving. It's our willingness to receive a blessing. It's our willingness to open up our hearts, our minds, and our bodies to a miracle.
Yeah.
And we just end up running around like men. It's funny. I do a podcast episode, Myrna, called Are You Trying to Get Pregnant Like a Man? Right? Because so many women pursue this with such intense masculine energy. It's very get energy. It's harsh. It's very judgmental. Like, oh no, you've been trying for 6 months and you can't get pregnant. You're worthless. I mean, that's the way I was living. And so in this book, I'm inviting women to live their fertility journey from a feminine perspective. And I teach exactly what that is. A very it's very step by step, because even though I am a woman, I dress like a woman, I wear makeup, I was wearing, courtroom appropriate feminine clothing. I was so disconnected from my feminine. So it doesn't surprise me that I wasn't conceiving at that time. My self-care was in the toilet. Like, it was awful. And so when I started incorporating more of these things, and I watch it in my clients today, that women, when they start to reclaim their femininity, live from a more feminine place, it's like clockwork. Their fertility goes through the roof. Like, it's, I see women who have one embryo go on to be very successful with those embryos, or get pregnant naturally, or, are open to an opportunity they hadn't considered before because their feminine was telling them, maybe it is, maybe I do want to open my heart to a surrogate, or maybe I do want to open my heart to a donor egg. It's like the essence of femininity is the ability to see possibility.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm inviting women to do, and become their own feminine fertility cure.
It's vague. It's one of the most popular topics I've had in this show, feminine energy, because a lot of women are operating in masculine energy. And, it's really interesting. But when the first thing you started off talking about was as a trial lawyer working 60, 80 hours a week. And I picked that up right away, because that's in masculine energy. Masculine energy is doing, and being successful. And even when you said, you scheduled you're going to get pregnant in May or something, and schedule a trial, and all that doing is masculine energy.
It's so refreshing, Myrna, to have a conversation like this with somebody that gets it, because it is inherently masculine. And it is absolutely untrue that women cannot go out and achieve in a feminine way, and honor their own boundaries around rest, around self-care. We probably wouldn't have half the disease that we have. I mean, we know that a significant portion of ER visits and visits for, to primary caregivers, or providers, excuse me, are stress related.
Yes.
And it's like, if people just understood this, like, please, your head and your body are connected by your neck, right? Like, the mind and the body work together. And if we learned to approach our success and achievement in a way that honors who we are as women, I think we open up a constellation of possibilities for ourselves.
Yeah. And maybe I just had this revelation, because we know that you said it right there in your introduction. 1 in 5 couples grapple with infertility. I can't figure out what's going on. What has changed from the 60s to, the 2000s? And I just got this, this little aha moment thing, is that a lot of women are not operating in feminine energy. And that's one of the reasons. I'm thinking the other reason is the birth control pill or whatever is happening to damage the eggs. But and or distress. But I definitely think that if we were to check off the boxes, that you're right. One of them would be not being in feminine energy, because feminine energy, like you said it, feminine energy is receiving. I'm just reading a book right now, Rhonda Bryan's book, and she's talking about very successful women can't take a compliment. They don't know how to accept accolades. You know what I mean? Because we don't know how to receive, right?
Yes. Yes. I mean, it is stunning. It's stunning the degree to which we as women have been hobbled. And I've chosen that word carefully. We have been hobbled by this construct that the only way we can achieve is in a masculine way. And my perspective is let the men achieve that way. That's beautiful and that's meant for them. But we as women get to achieve in a way that's meant for us, that is collaborative, that is non-competitive, that honors abundance for everybody, and is open and curious and able to pivot without telling a story.
Right.
And I think that once women really embrace that, they set themselves up for a different level of success, especially on this journey, because part of the research that I did for this book calls upon a study that was done by the Wharton School of Business. They tracked women's overall happiness between 1970 and 2006. And there was a 35% drop in women's overall happiness. So even though we are more educated than we ever were, we're making more money, we are more independent, we have more choices, we are less happy.
Yeah. And most people don't have partners too. So it's yeah, we're doing all by ourselves because the men are not really interested in a masculine woman. So it's a good thing. So one of the great things about your book is that, people can read it that's not even in a fertility journey, but just how to get their feminine back. I think it's a great read for that. So awesome. All right. So tell our listeners where they can pick up a copy of your book. What is your website? You mentioned that you have coaching programs. This is the time for you to talk about you.
Totally. Yeah, no, that's great. I really appreciate the opportunity. So yeah, my books are all available on Amazon. They are available anywhere books are sold. And my website, women can find me at www.frommaybe2baby.com. I'm very active on Instagram, and it's at Rosanne Austin Fertility. And yeah, you can learn all about me. And I have a podcast called the Fearlessly Fertile Podcast. And I always encourage women to start there. It is raw, it is unfiltered. You'll hear me waxing rhapsodical about my own journey, but also we feature a lot of experts as well as clients that have come through my program so they can see the living proof of these concepts. So yeah, it's been a pleasure, Myrna. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I might even pick up a copy of your book and read about feminine.
Yeah, we'll send you one.
Some of mine too. So yes, I'm aware of it, but I'm one of those doing women all the time. So yes, yeah, read your book because, and again, I love learning. So I would love to get some more insights on fertility and what we can do as far as helping women to bring forth, you know, something that it's so fundamental to women being a mother if they want to be. So that's amazing. All right, guys. So yes, I would have a transcript of my conversation with Roseanne on the show page, which is myhelps.us. I will link out to her book. I will link out to her podcast. And I'll also link out to her Instagram profile. So yeah, I mean, if you're in this space at all, then knowledge is power. And I like what Roseanne said, that you are the control person. Don't let the doctors tell you, oh, you at 35, you got to get donor eggs or whatever. That's ridiculous. Yeah, it is ridiculous. You got eggs. So yes, become the authority. And I know that because we're in a capitalist society, I really don't always trust doctors because they're always trying to sell you something. You know, yeah, they're always trying to sell you something. So yeah, they're trying to sell you, their program or whatever they want you to go down, and you should become well versed on it. So yeah, here is an expert. Listen to her podcast, read her book, see her posts on Instagram, and so that you will be in the space of learning and being in control of your own destiny. So Roseanne, yes, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for this great conversation. I've improved my knowledge.
Well, thank you, Myrna. I really appreciate your curiosity and your courage to have people that are a little disruptive to the flow on. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Oh, nicely. All right. So as we wrap up, Roseanne, any last words for the audience?
Yeah, I really encourage women to remember that the desire in their heart to be a mom, it's there because it was meant for them. And as long as they really focus in on that and get grounded in that truth, there's nothing that's going to stop them from making their mom dreams come true.
Yes, yes, yes. I wholeheartedly second that because, yes, if you stick to it, then you would have that little baby in your arms, and there's no better feeling. Yes, no better feeling. Yes, awesome. All right, guys. Well, listen, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Transform Your Mind so you can transform your life. Today, we're talking on transforming your life on fertility and becoming a mother, on the various ways that you can do it. So definitely, I think my guest, Rosanne Austin, pick up a copy of her book. It's called The Feminine Fertility Cure, and also connect with her if you are on a fertility journey. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, namaste.